So it's my pleasure to introduce him right now.
So hi everyone, I'm Varham. Thank you Catherine, thank you Fred, thank you Anne May also because I know she's here. She's the one who created the link with everyone at CreativeMornings, so thank you CreativeMornings. And thank you to everyone here because it's quite early for some. It's okay for me, I said I think 5 hours, but that's fine. Vibrant. So when everyone was talking about vibrant, first I thought that it's the best word for me because it's a double meaning in French and English. In French, first in English. In English it's dynamic, full of life, and it's actually maybe what my work is about, is to put everything in colors. And you might know my work already, but some of you maybe not, but I have some slides to show you. And vibrant in French, vibrant, is something that is much more emotional, almost tearful for some. It's not sad, but it's something that puts you on some level of emotion. So it was quite a good word for that, for me. And vibrant, the colors, for me, maybe it's the thing that changed my life as an artist, because it's actually how I tell a story. This is how I create my work, how I build up even full projects based on colors. It's how I want to stand out. This is how I want to be seen and to feel emotions, to pass a message and to get the story right. So here's mine. Because I think I never see a life in black and white. It's how maybe my own story is about nuance in French. How it comes from my own story as a French guy who was born in Paris. My parents are Armenian and they were born in Turkey. So it's already a story about the Eastern world and the Western world, and I wanted to maybe go even on the west side, which was actually the east coast of the US, and my trip was always to go on the west. Now it's much more about even western is Tokyo, so eastern if you make the whole thing, but that mix is how I always see things, how the colors from maybe Istanbul, where I used to go even after when I was a child. I was going to New York to see something completely different. I was always there every year, and that efficiency of colors comes from maybe from the billboards, from the architecture, from maybe what I've seen as something that was minimal and something that was really something I couldn't see in France. In France, everything was much more refined, sometimes complicated, and never something that was going straight to the point. So it's the mix of those things that maybe have myself going into this kind of double culture. This double culture, maybe it's not even double, it's like multiple culture. And for this, it's always a dialogue between how you can actually see your own story and how things are always a dialogue between my perception and how you build a story when you see my own work. This is how I always wanted to go into one image that could be simple enough so that people with their own story can add their own story. This is how I make a dialogue. One image is fine, but two images start a conversation. This is exactly what we can say in a movie. You can have, compared to photography, you can have just one image, but when you see that movie, you can create your own and you can dig into that story. And the most important thing is always to see things through your own story, but to make a pas de côté, to step aside. So that's how as a child, I was always an outsider. That's how I was maybe never in a group, always someone that was into maybe a class of people, but always looking from another perspective. And that's how I always wanted to create my story. When I was in New York, for example, I was the French guy in New York, and that's maybe why I created that project. The project Paris to New York was actually impossible for me to do in Paris. It was the fact that I was in New York that I could actually step aside. I could see from a distance, and the colors and the illustration of that project, they were something that were the vector of how I could explain that as a language. Colors, for some people, it can be sense, it can be words. For me, it was much more the colors and the shapes of things into that city, and from my city where I was thinking of Paris when I was in New York. So it was how I could actually see the best of those two words, and that's what I said just earlier. Is my main project was to eliminate, so to simplify and to see the essence. Exactly when a nose makes a perfume, you can see at the end what's left of that person and the souvenir of that person. L'écume. It's the same for the next project for Varham Japon, but it's always the souvenir of a place or the feeling that thing lives on you. So when I went to New York, it was of course because maybe I was fed up with some parts of Paris. Maybe I thought it was too grey, as you can see, and the grass was greener, of course, somewhere else, and it was not green. It was much more yellow, like taxis or maybe other things in New York. And I wanted to explore that, even if I knew that place very well, as I told you, but I needed to see and to dig deeper. So I went into that city for that reason, but I never thought that would happen. But once there, I said, what can I say about that place? Yeah, that's November, that's May also. There's a song in French called Novembre toute l'année. That's a bit true. I hope it's going to change this weekend. So that was the biggest surprise. It was just before Instagram. It was the end of blogs. At the end, it was the early 2010s. But it was the biggest surprise. Anne was actually already blogging about it. And it helped a lot to create that feeling that I could actually express myself through colors. But the colors, they're not the only reason I can do this job, and I'm an art director, so it was I wasn't feeling like an illustrator. Illustration for that project was the main thing, but it was always a relationship between the words and the colors. And 10 years later, after 8 trips to Japan, because my first trip was actually in Tokyo for Paris to New York in Japanese, because words could be translated. I went there in 2013, and just before the pandemic, of course we couldn't go. I started to work on that project to try to express the multiple scenes of Japan and the sense of Japan. So again, I'm calling it the écume when you control the écume of the waves. What you can have. Here's the white thing on the waves.
I have no idea how you call that in English.
There's a sea foam. I think it's sea foam.
Ah ouais, c'est pas joli.
It's not that nice in English.
Non.
Froth, you know, on the coffee.
Ah oui, c'est ça.
The white foam on the coffee.
Ah, ah oui, c'est un dread. But the project was also to create a story about my trip there, and it was the impossibility to go when I was stuck in Paris, like everyone was stuck in their own place during the pandemic. And I started to write much more, and I think I made something like a graphic novel, but with just one image. But those texts are much more described, because you couldn't tell just by one image, I think, the complexity and the complexity of Japan, because there's always two sides, at least, of from one word. So the whole book is made as the comptine in French, Marabout Bouticelle, as you can actually go from one page to the other, but always with two sides, two images, two ways of seeing things from the same world. So after you have so that's the whole trip there, and I think I drew everything by hand compared to Paris, New York, which was much more vector. This one was much more by hand to go into the craftsmanship that I started to absolutely love there, and then after the pandemic, I started to be called from clients, because since I'm starting to talk, it's always about double. I'm the author. Author is like you creating the problems that you want to solve yourself. So that's actually making a book or posters, or it can be anything. But when you have your clients, they're having an issue, and they try to solve that maybe by calling you, and that's where I would go for, as Catherine said, I'm working mainly now for publishing houses because I have this goal, and it's maybe very ambitious, but I think we can do better in French publishing houses, especially for book covers. I'm called for colors, so that's where I'm going into full color. So I may have made now 2 years. Yeah, 2 years of I did the logo, but I did the whole thing for them. So it's much more than illustration. There's illustration, but there's also a lot of photograph and a lot of montage of photographs. And the main thing is always to be pop. It's paperback, like Penguin, and the thing is very, very, very complicated to be seen and to be competing with others. So it's who's gonna be the most seen. So yeah, that's images that I made for the Salame book, like two. And I was also called for Edition Segers, which is an old publishing house, and that publishing house wasn't actually famous. You can see in the bookinist in Paris, you can find some little books from the 50s, the 60s, and they are actually famous for their colors, the book covers that are very colorful. There's a collection of colors that are crazy. And so we started to think that it would be good to go back to that and to create also very different and standing out from the poetry image of people, because some people can seem that it's a bit not for them, but poetry is a thing now, it's coming back. So this publishing house is, I think, reaching their goal, which is up and up and up, like, I don't know, 20% more, like every year. It's kind of crazy. And some books are much bigger, and colors and the shapes are always the center of the. That book is an amazing book. Did you know that Vincent van Gogh was actually painting the skies, also almost on stage, like the real skies, where they're not just stars in the sky. So they're really like the real sky and the real stars on the sky. That thing is actually interesting to see. So my trip is always to be a planner. I'm a child, still I think I'm going to stay a child with curious eyes. That's how I see things. I always wanted to be maybe a creative, but I didn't know from the start that we would take this path. But that path is actually really me. So maybe you have another talent. Maybe you have a talent to see shapes of fabrics or words that are coming up together and they're actually making sentences that are actually interesting to read. Maybe it's something else, but it's a bit cliche, but your child inside is the eye that you have. So yeah, I think I'm gonna be going my way again for another trip, maybe, I don't know, Brittany, we'll see. Merci beaucoup.
Thanks very much. Un peu de temps pour des questions. Mais il y a moi une question que je voulais absolument poser à Varham parce qu'il a été nommé chevalier des arts et des lettres. Je sais, du coup, l'histoire du chevalier, quoi.
Chevalier, en fait, je monte pas à cheval, mais je vais passer en français. Chevalier, en fait, chevalier des arts et lettres, c'est un peu comme une forme de reconnaissance. So many people don't know in the American world how it is, but you have Légion d'honneur in France, which is if you do something like heroic or if you do something good for your country. And arts et lettres means that you are doing something good for the French rayonnement internationally. So they name I think they put my name on the bucket list, and it was voted from the people who were there to say, okay, not good enough. Okay, good. Or I don't know this guy. It's how it works. So when I think it's the first government of Macron. It's Françoise Nissen, who is at Actes Sud since forever, who was the ministre de la Culture. And so I was with Pierre Arditi, the same. So it's any age or any people can be in that bucket list, but it's just a surprise when you are named. It's twice a year, I think. And it's an honor. It's good. But you can be more than chevalier, so I think I have to start riding a horse. Commander, and after I know which one. But you gain like, I think I'm just bronze. Maybe maybe Olympic gold after, but for now I'm just bronze.
Still, I don't think a lot of people here, unless there's another chevalier here, but I don't think a lot of people can say that, just even at the bronze level. Does anyone have a question, or we can be more casual? But
yeah, I do have a question. First of all, thank you for inviting to your visual universe. It was a really rich experience. And my question, this part of outsider got me when you told like you felt an outsider when you was young, and this point of view enabled you to create your visual universe, I would say. And if it's not too touchy as a subject, would you like to tell at which point in your life you decide, you made a decision like, okay, I feel like an outsider, but I will make it an artistic decision if you want. Because people like to fit in, and you take decision not to put your energy trying to fit in, but instead stay where you are and create at which point you are. I don't know if it makes sense.
It makes sense. It's a very interesting question. Thank you for asking. Maybe it's a multiple answer maybe, but it was always important to be able to be watching things from not everyone's perspective. Why? Because I had I'm gonna go into my childhood. I used to, when I was a kid, I used to, comment on dit strabisme? I go, my eye was actually not, just to know, my left eye is not seeing well since I'm a child. So it's like a lazy eye. And it was going down, and I was harassed. As you might imagine, when you are 4, 5, 6, and you have big glasses with things on it. It was not harassment like we talk about harassment, but it was always moquerie. So I didn't say that I didn't want to have friends, but I had friends. But it was always that real feeling that things were not always nice. And it was very, very important to be able to protect myself. I had a big brother, so it was always through him. I was like, he was really big. And he was always defending, and I said that I always thought that if I didn't have that brother, maybe I would have been much more attacking people. But I wasn't defending myself. I was silent. And even today, I think the best answer to bullies is to not answer. I always ignore, because if you go into, it's always something that is fueling the thing. So the best way was for me to note things and to create something out of it. And it can be very disturbing, or it can be very complicated at some point. But it was the best way is to digest everything. The world is complex, and the world is full of use, of nuance, and it was important not to be just into a black and white thing. Like you attack me, I'm gonna answer you, or I'm gonna hit you because you hit me. I was always like, calm down, meditate. It was a form of meditation. So it might be the way I was building myself. I knew that there would be good friends in my life, and I have great friends since my childhood, by the way. But I needed to be able to know that there are some different groups of people. So I knew that from early age. And maybe that's why I always wanted to be able to not be into one group, because I knew if I was into one group, it could be complicated to another group or another person. It's always important to be able to act as someone into a society, but always being able to be free to that. Otherwise you feel a bit trapped. That's why I didn't want to feel trapped. Freedom is maybe the main word. Freedom to walk around, to see things. And the most important thing is after when I started to have a recognition of my peers, it was always not to be showing my face too much. I'm not showing so much I did for the event, but I'm not putting myself for the area we are in, myself into a big selfie mode and talking. I always wanted to be able to feel almost unseen, so that I could see things from and not being watched, but being able to see like a child. Is it okay with the Oui. Yes?
I have one question. Normally, it's difficult to have the idea in the brain and then you put it on the paper. How do you get inspiration from the brain?
The idea from the brain? How the link makes?
From the beginning to the end, like you have something and you feel connected and you feel inspiring as well. How do you get your inspiration and how do you put it?
That's a good question too. Maybe because I did studies for that, so I'm not autodidact. I think it's very important to be able to, because I see people doing formation of 3 days. I'm like, 3 days? No. It's a good starting point, but it's complicated. I did 5 years of drawing, but I did also 20 years also of watching, drawing. It's always like I always say it's a non-stop process. So ideas are coming like maybe butterflies or things that are about to be catched, but once you catch them, what are you doing with that? That's the question. How do you go from one idea, this idea of Paris is New York, for example, it was, that's what I write in the book, it was in the metro, in New York, I was drawing, I was looking at things and I saw something that was funny enough to go to another step. So it was, the first drawing was the cup of coffee, espresso American was my first drawing in my notebook, and I started to write words, and those words are much more important for me than drawings. The words are going into a scenario, a script, and that script, if it transforms itself into something that I see, but to see you have to know how to draw, you have to know how to simplify, or how, for my work, if you are writing, for example, just a book of words, I think one idea comes to another one that goes into a dialogue. It's many forms. So if I want to answer to that question, is to keep working, because it's always by working that you're gonna have one moment that pops up, and that pops when it pops up. It's just not one idea. It has to be linked to all the other ideas that you might have writing down 3 months before or 3 days before you make connections. So it's a complicated answer because it's what you are, but it's also how things are shaping up in your own notebook, but also it's a way of mapping things. So it's a full 360, je sais pas comment on dit, 360 degree theme. You are in the center. So it's how you take everything and how you put something that is actually comprehensible. That's what I was trying to say. It's a dialogue. It's not only me with my ideas, how you transmit or how you pass the idea. How you pass something that is actually you try to do something that is beautiful, but it may be not beautiful for everyone, but you have to do something. For me, I have to be always elegant. That's how I see things, but some people want to be trash, they can be trash, and I can see their ideas through their own perspective. But it's always sort of a passing of a message. Je vais essayer d'être clair. Oui.
Excuse me, I'm getting older. How do you manage to take free spirits all the time? I mean, your bag is empty of projects that you've done, you have an history, you have also maybe financial responsibility, family and so on. And how do you manage to get free spirits? I mean, few times each day, and when do you take opportunities just to stop and make time out just to complete your project? And you take 1 month, you take 3 months, you take one and a
For my
1
own
year's
project
work. Yeah.
or
yeah,
for
yeah.
clients?
For your own project.
For my project.
Client, it's work.
Work. That's important. But actually, it's work, but it's funny because for me, those clients, it's like I have the chance to say that it's much more still a passion to work for them. It's work, but I don't feel that I'm working that much. But for my own project as an author, that's what I say to everyone who is like, comment on dit, page blanche. Non, c'est pas Homepage, c'est bloc. Creative block.
Quoi?
Writer's block?
Ouais.
Writer's block?
Ouais, c'est vrai.
Je commence à...
Non, quand t'es en page blanche, quand tu sais plus.
Ah,
Creative block. Creative block. So when I'm having those moments as an author, sometimes I can be actually blocked by something. And you said the word time out. Time out is not time out. It's just time out of your way of working usually, or way of traveling in your head. So I'm actually working a lot. So walking, riding a bike is where actually I'm getting my. When I'm in a movement, the metro in New York, or planes, when I used to get on planes, not anymore that much, by choice. Trains, TGV is a great place to have ideas. And not TGV riding down, TGV looking at the window is the best way to have ideas. Free mind. The free mind is the best thing for me. After, some people will say, oh, no, yoga is a good place too. Yoga is important. But it's always to find your best, and running is a great place to have ideas. But you need also that moment, and it's huge in front of your computer to know that you are actually recognizing that you have a block. Or not a block, it's just there's something missing. There's something that is not feeling right, or there's something that could be better, or there's something that you want to explore more. It's not just I'm stuck and I don't know. No, it's just because it's just like casse-tête chinois. You just go into this thing is like, and you're just making. It's craftsmanship, but it's also very controlling.
Do you need a special time for this, or do you use it in the usual life?
It's very random. Very random. What I know is that everything good happens in the morning. We're actually really early in the morning. And I have 2 dogs, so it's great to have great mornings.
we need speakers like that. We do I suggest we end here. You guys can all ask questions to them afterwards, like in a more like one-to-one casual way. Please talk to Mario Apolline if you want to see a little bit more of the remix go like around, and talk to someone we haven't talked. Use the prompt you've written down, and we'll see you all hopefully.
I'll point to our next page.
On dit là. Alright, thank you.
Thank you.